So we are starting the part of the yearbook that is one of my favorite things to do, and it is to pick the theme of the yearbook. Before we pick our theme, there are a couple things we need to understand about yearbook themes and what they all involve. So in this section, we're going to take a look at different themes and different ways for them to be spread across the book. So the theme of the yearbook sets the tone for the entire yearbook. Sometimes they can be serious, sometimes they can reflect our school, sometimes they could reflect a trend. Last year's theme was in retrospect, and we used kind of the Polaroid thing, and we were looking back at the year. Regardless of what we do, a theme should be three things. Recognizable, so people should be able to look at our book and they should be able to understand what our kind of theme slogan is, and then they should be understanding, oh, I'm seeing this graphic repeated, or I'm seeing this font repeated, or this layout looks similar. So those are things that we talk about when we mean recognizable. A theme should also be relevant. So the theme should relate to our students' lives and the year. It should make sense. So for example, a couple years ago, we did What's Your Story? And it looked like Snapchat. That was super relevant for our students who were using Snapchat a lot and still do at the time. And then repeatable. And I talked about this a little bit before, but the theme should be used repeatedly on different pages, or different elements of our theme should be used and repeated throughout the book. So what we're going to do now is look at some books and their themes and look at how those themes are carried throughout the book. So how are they repeatable? How are they relevant? And how are they recognizable? What are the elements of the theme that we can pick out? So this is the cover of this school's book. It is Who Knew? That's their theme. And Now You Know. And so when we look at this visually, we'll see a couple of different things that will be repeated throughout their book. So we're going to look for those words, the who knew, now you know, that will repeat. We're going to look at these fonts. So this kind of outline font, that's going to repeat throughout the book. And then what we call sans serif, which looks kind of like these block letters, that will repeat. These dotted lines are going to repeat throughout the book in terms of a graphic. And then kind of these blue boxes, those will also repeat, as well as some of the square pictures and the little hexagon, octagon, yellow items. So this is just their cover, and now we'll look at a couple different spreads and we'll see what's repeated on those spreads. So the very first thing that I should notice is the who knew is happening again. So that slogan and that key word is happening again on this spread. Then I see all those dots. I see the yellow hexagons happen, and the same fonts are repeating. The outline fonts and then those sans serif block letter type fonts are also repeating. On this spread, we're seeing a couple different things repeating. We have the square images. We've got those blue rectangles that we saw on the cover, and then they're also using yellow rectangles because yellow was their other color. They've got some of the hexagons on the side of the page. They've got the little dots, and then they're still using those same fonts. On this spread, again, we're repeating the dots. We're repeating the blue boxes. Our fonts are repeating. We're still using a lot of rectangular or square pictures because that's been consistent. I also want you to notice that the page numbers at the bottom will repeat now on every single page throughout the book. So that's kind of cool. Here's another example of a spread. This time they're introducing more of an orange color, but I like what you can see on here, that who knew is repeated again. Who knew my homecoming would be different? So they're using that play on words in their actual theme slogan, and that's kind of cool. In addition to all of those other theme elements with the squares, the blue, the dots, and the fonts. Same thing here. We have the who knows you best. We've got the dots, we've got the squares, we've got the boxes, we've got the fonts, and we still can mix things up. So they have all these little sections where they're pulling out information, but I can tell that this is the same book as my other spreads, even if I slightly adjust some of my theme elements. From this page, I like that we're repeating this circle to highlight an area. I know the best way to study. Who knows you best? as well as in the bottom left-hand corner, that main headline and the line underneath it has been repeated on different page spreads. So this one's the New Night of Traditions. This is that Spooktacular Day, and it looks very similar, but we've still changed out the content. On this spread, again, we're seeing a lot more of those hexagons. We're still seeing those fonts, the dots, the colors, all of that. The page numbers at the bottom is matching the theme. And then when we take a look at their portrait page, while we've got all of their pictures, we've still got some of those theme elements up here in the upper right-hand corner that make us know, yep, this is part of that book. The hexagons, again, the fonts, the dots, the blue boxes. So when we break down theme development, there are two parts to it. The verbal part is the phrase or slogan. So like in that first book, they repeated those words, who knew, or now I know, or I know this. And then the visual part are the graphics or the shapes. So it could be certain clip art. And that theme, it was the little hexagons that repeated, or the line that went underneath the headline, or the circle that was sometimes around a chunk of content. Colors should repeat. So they were primarily using blue, black, yellow, and orange. And then certain fonts should repeat. So they had that outline font, and then they had kind of the block letter fonts. And whichever font they did, they could make some changes. So sometimes it could be italic or bold, but they stuck with 1 to 2 fonts throughout the entire book. We're going to take a look at 2 other school books and their themes, just so you can see how they carry through the theme on different pages. So this theme, their verbal slogan is dynamic, and some of their graphics that they carry throughout the theme are these little lines that are going everywhere. They've got those big block letters, and then they have that I that's in blue that's pulling out of dynamic. So again, we've got the words dynamic, we've got the blue, we've got the lines everywhere. Same thing here. I see fonts repeated. I see the lines. I see the blue for my colors. This time they're adding in yellow, but they've still got the graphics in terms of the rectangles. They've still got that tall block font. They've still got the lines. Same thing here. We've just added a different color, but the layouts look very similar in terms of where my pictures are placed and how they are arranged on the page and the fonts. On their portrait pages, they're continuing to use the shapes with the rectangles and those diagonal lines. In this book, you're going to see some different graphics and theme elements. The first thing that you'll notice for their book is their colors are kind of this brown and blue. They have got that infinity sign, which is the sideways 8. It kind of looks like scrolls here. They've got the little bow ties. They have got vertical lines that they use throughout their book too, and the special font here with the M. So again, we see kind of that infinity sign. Their background here is all little bow ties. The colors are the same font, same infinity sign. We're going to see vertical lines with their pictures over on the right. Again, we'll see vertical lines on the right underneath summer. We've got that brown and blue color that we're using. Vertical lines where they're talking about different grades down to each student that they're featuring. Brown and blue with those fonts. Here they've got the brown and blue again, same fonts, and we're keeping that square and rectangle feel in terms of our layouts with our pictures and our portrait pages. So now that I've given you some examples of how a theme can be carried throughout the book, both verbally and visually, you have 2 things that I'm looking for you to do. The first is to play this theme matching game. So I'm going to give you a bunch of different themes, and you're trying to match up the pages that go with each theme. Then in 2-1, I am asking you to go out and look for 3 different potential themes that we could use for our yearbook. You can search Google, you can search Pinterest, look for different yearbook themes, and I'm looking for picture examples of that theme. And then I want you to tell me 5 ways you see that theme carried throughout the book. So when we went through the Who Knew example, I had pictures of each of those spreads, and then I identified 5 things. They reused the words who knew. They had the yellow hexagons. They had the dots on every single page. They had this outline font, and then they also used rectangles of blue behind certain text or rectangular pictures. So 3 different themes that you are exploring, and you're like, hey, this might be a great idea, because that's our next step will be to actually choose a theme. And then picture examples of what that theme looks like.